Welcome to Griffonomics.
Glad to be here for this one.
When you think about government contractors, you probably have a very specific image in your head. Like fluorescent lights, endless rows of gray cubicles, and these slow, paper-pushing bureaucracies just moving at the speed of a dial-up modem, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
it's historically an industry built on massive headcounts and super repetitive tasks.
exactly. But for this deep dive, we are looking at a company that is aggressively trying to rewrite that entire script. We're unpacking the Q2 2026 financials of Maximus, ticker symbol MMS.
Yeah, and what we're looking at through these documents is a company that might secretly be transforming. Like, they are trying to become an AI-powered technology as a service machine, or TaaS, as the industry calls it.
Which is a wild pivot for them. And it's a fascinating transformation to watch unfold, especially when you look at it through the lens of a forensic audit. We want to go way beyond the headline earnings numbers today to understand the actual mechanics of what they are building.
Right, because on the surface, they just look like a traditional business process outsourcing company or a BPO. But under the hood, the structural changes they are making are completely altering their financial profile.
And that is exactly our mission today for you listening. We want to answer one core question as you evaluate this landscape. Is Maximus a stable compounder successfully pivoting to a high-margin tech model currently trading at an attractive 12x earnings?
Or, and this is the flip side we have to consider, when you peel back the layers, are they actually a highly optimized labor play? Like, are they trying to hide deep structural cash flow risks behind shiny AI buzzwords?
Right, the classic tech washing concern. So to get to the bottom of that, we have to start by untangling a rather glaring contradiction in their latest financial results. If you really want to understand the Maximus of today, you have to look at what they are intentionally choosing not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Let's unpack this, because when you look at their Q2 top line, the revenue actually shrank. They reported a 4.1% contraction.
Yeah, which brought revenue down to $1.31 billion. Now, normally, Wall Street just hits the panic button when revenue drops, but their bottom line tells a completely different story here.
It really does. Their adjusted EBITDA margins didn't just hold steady, they actually expanded to a record 14.4%.
Which is kind of crazy. How do you make significantly more profit on significantly less revenue? I mean, that breaks the traditional model.
What we call this the revenue mirage. The broader market is often just obsessed with top-line growth at all costs, right? But Maximus management is actually letting certain revenue streams bleed out on purpose
Wait, on purpose? Why would you want your revenue to drop?
because they are actively burning off low-margin legacy work,
Yeah.
specifically in their disaster recovery segment. Think about things like setting up temporary thousands of seats call centers for natural disasters or pandemic response.
Okay, so high volume, but the margins are razor thin.
Exactly. It takes a massive amount of effort for very little actual profit. So they are shedding that weight.
Yeah.
And they're replacing it with highly complex, data-intensive clinical and cybersecurity work.
Oh, I see. It's basically like a restaurant intentionally shrinking its menu. Like you cut out the cheap, high-volume fast food that takes your kitchen staff a ton of effort, but barely turns a profit.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, and instead you transition to exclusively selling high-margin steaks. You might serve fewer customers overall, so your top-line revenue looks a bit lighter, but you are taking home significantly more cash at the end of the night.
Exactly. You're focusing on the stakes.
But here's my question. Is the AI actually the chef here? Like, is the technology fundamentally driving this margin, or is this just clever accounting?
Oh, the technology is absolutely the driver here. But to understand why, we have to look at how it breaks the traditional BPO business model. Historically, the relationship between revenue and cost for a company like Maximus has been entirely linear.
Meaning, if you want to do more work, you just have to hire more people.
Right. If they wanted to process twice as many unemployment claims, they literally had to hire twice as many human beings. But the holy grail for these companies is decoupling labor costs from transaction volumes.
Which is exactly what management claims they're doing now with what they call Agentic AI.
Yes, Agentic AI. We hear that term thrown around a lot in earnings calls lately.
We do, but what does it actually mean in the context of processing boring government paperwork?
Well, think of it as AI that doesn't just answer questions. It actually takes actions. A perfect example in their portfolio is their dispute resolution program. They deployed an in-house solution that uses a combination of generative and probabilistic AI.
Okay, let's break that down. Generative AI is what most people are familiar with, right? Like summarizing case files, drafting emails, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But probabilistic AI is where the real margin is made here.
So what is probabilistic AI doing that generative isn't?
Probabilistic AI is running the math. It looks at millions of past claims and assigns a statistical probability of an error or fraud or an approval. And it does this before a human even clicks on the file.
Oh, wow. So it is essentially scoring and triaging the work automatically.
Yep. Because of this dual system, nearly 50% of the manual effort required to process these high-volume claims is now handled by automation.
That is massive. So if the algorithm is doing half the heavy lifting on the front end, the human staff only has to step in for the most complex, nuanced cases.
Exactly. They're doing vastly more work with way less human capital.
Which perfectly explains that record 14.4% margin. Maximus just captures the spread between the tech efficiency and the contract payout.
That's the core mechanism, yeah. It creates just massive operating leverage for them.
Okay, but that makes me want to look a little closer at the reality on the ground, because federal dispute resolution is one thing. But if you've ever dealt with a state-level unemployment portal or a DMV site, you know exactly what a mess those legacy systems are.
Oh, they are famously terrible.
Right, so if AI is driving these massive margins, how are these algorithms actually functioning in the state-level trenches?
Well, that is a huge friction point. State contracts are notoriously difficult to modernize.
Yeah.
But Maximus is attacking this with a couple of specific product innovations. The first is their Total Experience Management Platform, or TXM.
Okay, what does TXM actually do?
They partnered with AWS to basically overhaul government contact centers. They're using tools like Amazon Bedrock and Amazon TextRack.
So we're talking about call deflection and intelligent document processing, like where the system reads handwritten forms and does real-time fraud detection.
Exactly. And the other big innovation states are buzzing about is their SNAP Accuracy Assistant. State officials are apparently raving about this thing.
Yeah, I read they're calling it the only end-to-end vendor solution that actually prevents costly SNAP or food stamp eligibility errors. But I have to push back on the narrative here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
We just talked about AI doing 50% of the work. Is this SNAP tool actually replacing human BPO agents at the state level? Or is it just acting like a really smart spell checker for the human workforce?
That is a crucial distinction, and you are hitting on the harsh reality of the public sector. The AI is not replacing humans at the state level. What we are seeing here is an efficiency arbitrage, not a total labor wipeout.
Wait, so the AI finds the errors, but then what?
The SNAP Accuracy Assistant scans the databases and surfaces data inconsistencies. It points out the errors. But Maximus still heavily relies on human call center agents to actually pick up the phone, contact the beneficiaries, and make the manual corrections in the system.
Wow, so it's strictly an agent assist model. The robot points at the problem, but the human still has to go in and fix it. Why?
It comes down to two main reasons. First is public trust. State governments are incredibly cautious about adopting full AI labor replacement.
Yeah, I can imagine the political pushback would be intense.
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
There is huge political and social sensitivity around allowing an algorithm to unilaterally make decisions about a citizen's food stamps or Medicaid benefits. If an AI wrongfully denies a family food assistance, it is an absolute public relations nightmare for a governor.
Right, the optics are just terrible. And what's the second reason?
The sheer technical debt of the states. These governments are operating on a tangled web of legacy systems, some of which are literally decades old.
Decades. That's wild.
Yeah, the CEO of Maximus actually noted that in one particular state, their employees have to be actively trained across 5 different legacy systems just to process a single day's work.
5 different systems. That is the classic swivel chair workflow. You copy data from a blue screen from the 1990s, swivel around, and paste it into a web browser.
Exactly. It's incredibly inefficient.
I mean, I get frustrated when I have to use 2 different chat apps for work, so you obviously can't just plug an advanced AI into a patchwork quilt of outdated state servers and expect it to magically replace the entire human workforce.
You really can't. It requires human navigation to bridge those outdated systems together. So at the state level, the AI is a powerful tool to win contracts because it improves accuracy. But it does not decouple labor from volume in the way their federal programs do.
Which brings up an inevitable strategic problem. If state civilian agencies are bogged down by 40-year-old servers and public trust issues, Maximus hits a growth ceiling.
They absolutely do.
Right. They can't force TaaS on states that aren't ready for it. So if they want customers who are actually willing and able to pay for full, radical AI implementation, Where do they go?
Well, the answer is they are forced to completely change their customer base. They are pivoting upstack into defense tech.
And this is where the financial model gets incredibly interesting. We are looking at a $163 million pivot into the Air Force.
Yeah, Maximus recently secured two massive contracts, one for $77 million and another for $86 million. And these are specifically with the Air Force Cyber Command.
Okay, so what exactly are they providing for the Air Force?
They are providing advanced cybersecurity, cloud services, and rapid capability development.
Okay, but hold on. Running a state unemployment office or a S&P call center is one thing. Becoming cyber operators for the United States military is a massive leap.
It is a huge jump, yeah.
How does a BPO company win defense contracts against established legacy military tech giants? Like, what is their VIP pass into that highly restricted club?
Their VIP pass is what analysts are calling the cyber moat. Maximus recently achieved the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, specifically CMMC Level 2.
Now, for you listening, why this acronym matters is that this certification is an incredibly steep, expensive, and difficult barrier to entry.
Oh, it really is. It legally confirms their ability to secure sensitive national defense data to the Department of Defense's absolute most stringent standards.
So it's basically a regulatory moat. It essentially locks out all the smaller, non-compliant regional competitors who just can't afford the infrastructure to hit level 2.
It definitely locks out competitors, yes. But more importantly, it solves a massive headache for the government buyer. Working with a CMMC Level 2 certified partner means the military can bypass lengthy authorization to operate, or ATO, delays.
Let's explain that, because ATOs are the bane of existence for literally any government software provider.
They really are a nightmare. Think of an ATO as a government security clearance for a piece of software. It can take 6 to 12 months of grueling paperwork, audits, and security checks just to get permission to plug a new tool into a military server.
Just to plug it in. That stalls projects endlessly.
Exactly. Because Maximus already had this overarching certification, they can deploy their technology vastly faster than uncertified rivals. And these contracts aren't just quick one-off consulting gigs either.
Right. They are long-tail stabilizers. They feature a base year, 4 option years, and a 6-month extension.
Yep, that is a potential 5.5-year duration of highly complex, sticky, high-margin revenue.
So, if we pause and look at the board right now, we have an AI engine driving record margins in federal civilian contracts and a newly certified cyber moat securing long-term military contracts.
It sounds great on paper, doesn't it?
It sounds like the perfect transition into a technology-as-a-service powerhouse. But here is where it gets really interesting, because if we dig into the forensic audit of their 10Q, we hit a very hard reality check.
We do, and it's a big one.
Despite all this talk about AI, AWS platforms, and defense pivots, human labor and subcontracted labor still consume approximately 2/3 of the company's total cost of revenue.
Which brings us directly back to your original question about their identity.
Yeah.
Are they a tech company, or are they really just a labor company?
Right. If 2/3 of your costs are still just paying humans to do the work, aren't you essentially just a traditional stacking business wearing a high-tech Halloween costume?
It is a very fair critique, and it exposes what financial analysts are calling the labor harmony overhang. Because their fundamental cost structure is still so deeply tethered to human capital, they remain highly, painfully sensitive to federal labor policies.
Let's break that down. And just to be clear for you listening, we are looking at this purely through an impartial financial and mathematical lens.
Exactly.
We aren't taking any political stance on unions, wage laws, or labor rights here. We just want to understand the raw math of the business risk.
Absolutely. The math works like this. Maximus just squeezed out a 200 basis point margin gain, primarily through their AI efficiencies. And in the government contracting space, 200 basis points is a massive victory.
Right. They fought hard for that margin.
They did. However, future federal contracts often include mandates for union-friendly agreements. These are referred to as labor harmony agreements. Or they impose higher wage floors as part of broad social responsibility clauses.
So let me try an analogy here to make this concrete. Think of their AI efficiency like upgrading your company fleet to electric vehicles to get better mileage.
Okay, I follow.
It's great you're saving a ton of money on operating costs, but these new labor agreements are like the government suddenly mandating that electricity costs 10 times as much.
That's a brutal way to look at it, but yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how efficient your engine is anymore. The underlying cost input just wiped out all your brilliant engineering gains.
That is exactly the dynamic. If a new federal contract dictates a significant bump in base pay or mandates union negotiation for the contact center workers, those mandated cost increases could instantly neutralize that 200 basis point margin gain.
Wow. So the tech gains are there, but they are fragile.
Very fragile. The technology gains are very real, but they remain highly vulnerable to the human element of their cost structure.
And this heavy reliance on human capital leads us directly into the most alarming part of this entire forensic audit, the cash flow statement.
Yeah, this is where things get a bit tense for them.
Because high margins look fantastic on an income statement, right? But accounting profits don't pay your employees every 2 weeks. And they certainly don't fund massive stock buybacks. You need actual cash for that.
You need liquid cash, yes. And right now, Maximus is caught in what looks like a severe cash trap.
Let's get into the details of that. What's causing this cash trap?
It is a significant working capital crunch driven by what we refer to as the DSO bottleneck. DSO stands for Days Sales Outstanding. In simple terms, it's how long it takes a company to actually collect the cash it is owed after it has provided the service.
And Maximus's DSO is currently sitting at an elevated 78 days. That is well above their target of 70 days.
It's a long time to wait for a check.
Seriously, they're basically paying their staff and running their servers for over 2.5 months before the government actually pays them.
And if you read the fine print in the filings, the cause of this is highly concentrated. It is driven by retroactive administrative and invoicing delays with a single major federal customer.
A single customer is holding up that much cash.
Yep. Because this massive chunk of cash is trapped in government receivables limbo, it caused Maximus to burn $54.9 million in negative operating cash flow in the first half of fiscal 2026.
Okay, stop right there. This is a glaring contradiction. They're burning $55 million in negative cash flow, and their money is trapped by bureaucratic red tape. Yet the board of directors just authorized a $400 million stock buyback.
I know, it sounds crazy when you put it like that.
How do you aggressively buy back your own stock when you are bleeding operating cash and the government has all your money trapped?
It requires some very aggressive tactical maneuvering by the management team. The executives look at the current stock price and see that the broader market is heavily discounting them. And that's because of that top-line revenue mirage we discussed at the beginning.
So the market sees shrinking revenue and gets scared.
Exactly. The market sees shrinking revenue, but management sees expanding margins and a fundamentally decoupled labor cost model. Because management firmly believes the stock is deeply undervalued at 12x earnings, they are relying on short-term liquidity tools to bridge the cash gap so they can buy the stock right now.
Wait, so they are borrowing money to buy back their own stock?
In a mechanical sense, yes. Specifically, they expanded their receivables purchase agreement, their RPA ceiling, from $250 million to $350 million.
Let's explain what an RPA actually does. It's essentially a corporate payday loan, right?
That's a fairly accurate, if blunt, way to describe it.
Maximus takes the IOUs from the government, the money they are owed but haven't received yet, and they sell those invoices to a bank at a slight discount just to get the cash today.
That is the exact mechanism. It's often called factoring. It is a lifeline, but it means they are paying a premium to a financial institution just to access their own trapped capital.
That seems like a risky game to play.
It can be. But they feel comfortable executing this maneuver because their underlying balance sheet is actually quite healthy in terms of debt. Their net leverage ratio is only 1.8x right now.
And why does that specific 1.8x number matter to the board?
Because it sits very comfortably below their target ceiling of 2.0 to 3.0x. It means they have the raw debt capacity to absorb this temporary cash bottleneck, pay the bank fees on the RPA, and still aggressively capture their own stock at what they perceive to be a massive discount.
Okay, so it's a bold play. But to survive this cash trap in the long term, and to truly justify spending $400 million on buybacks while factoring invoices, they need a tidal wave of new, highly profitable cash-generating work to clear the pipes.
They absolutely do need a catalyst.
And that brings us to the strategic inflection point for the company's future. Where is that new growth supposed to come from?
It is coming from what industry analysts call the Medicaid uplift. State governments are currently gearing up for Medicaid community engagement work requirements. This is directly tied to the recent H.R. 1 Working Families Tax Cut Act.
Right, so under this new act, certain beneficiaries actually have to prove they're working a required number of hours to keep their benefits.
Exactly. And you can imagine it is a massive logistical nightmare for state governments to track whether millions of beneficiaries are actually meeting their federal 80-hour work requirements every single month.
And this is where Maximus steps in with that AI-enabled intelligent document processing solution. We're talking about a mobile app-style interface here.
Yes, it's very consumer-friendly.
Users can just snap a picture of their physical timesheets or pay stubs with their phone, and the AI automatically reads the image, extracts the hours, and verifies compliance. And it does all this without a human agent needing to type it in.
That's the beauty of it. It scales incredibly well.
But I have to ask.
Yeah.
We know government policy shifts can hurt them just as easily as they help them. We saw that with the 6% drop in legacy clinical volumes when the pandemic emergency ended. So how big of a lifeboat is this new Medicaid requirement, really?
Oh, it is a structurally massive lifeboat. Management's total opportunity pipeline right now sits at a record $56.8 billion.
Wait, billion with a B.
Billion with a B. And they explicitly project that this MCE implementation, the tracking of these new Medicaid work requirements, could drive a more than 30% increase in their current program revenue in early adopting states alone.
A 30% increase? That is incredible growth potential for what is essentially a legacy government program.
It really is. But as with everything in government contracting, the actual realization of that revenue relies entirely on the speed of regulation. Right now, states are just using placeholders in their budgets, waiting for the final federal regulations to solidify.
So it's a waiting game.
It is. Once the ink dries on those rules, that $56.8 billion pipeline could rapidly convert into the significant cash-generating contracts Maximus desperately needs to clear its bottleneck.
So bringing all of this together, what does this all mean for you as you evaluate Maximus? We set out to answer a core question. Is this company a stable compounder executing a brilliant pivot to TaaS? Or are they a highly optimized labor play currently starving for cash to fund a buyback narrative?
Honestly, the evidence points to a company straddling both realities right now. They are undeniably executing a technology-as-a-service model in isolated areas.
Right, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, their 14.4% margins in federal dispute resolution and their Air Force cyber contracts, those prove the AI decoupling actually works. But the 78-day DSO working capital crunch and the heavy reliance on factoring are equally real.
They really are walking a very tight rope between expanding their technological moats and managing the massive friction of human-centric government mandates.
It's a delicate balancing act for the management team.
Which leaves you with one final provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up today's deep dive. What happens when the unstoppable force of AI efficiency collides with the immovable object of government labor mandates?
It's the multi-billion-dollar question.
It really is. Think about the fundamental tension here. If a probabilistic AI algorithm can suddenly do 50% of the manual work, but federal regulations eventually require you to pay a union-negotiated wage floor for the human who used to do that work, who actually captures the financial value of the AI in the public sector.
Is it the tech company that created the software?
Is it the government saving taxpayer dollars? Or is it the worker whose job was fundamentally redefined? It is a philosophical and financial tension that will completely define the next decade of government contracting.
It's a tension that simply cannot be ignored, and Maximus is currently operating at the absolute center of it.
Risk defined, portfolio protected.